You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Arsenal Pass episode 177. Brendan, Patrick, we're about to enter the world of Rosetta. 1 week till Tampa Bay and the world premiere. I don't know, the set is looking pretty juicy, I think.
Yeah, the wizard cards look crazy. Definitely the best zaps ever printed. And it's like a whole entire set of zaps, which is crazy. I wonder, I saw a take from Peter on Twitter. Is like, yeah, I want to get excited about these other wizards, but they keep printing Kano cards, and I kind of agree, to be honest. I've always thought, I always wondered, especially in the early iterations of that combo deck, it was like, what if we could just run all blue zaps? Mm-hmm. I mean, we kind of would. We kind of would have done that. So it makes me wonder how powerful that would be in sort of the
today
Rosetta iteration of Kano.
Let me hit you with something. What if Wildfire's about to be banned?
That is exactly what I think is going to happen, by the way. I actually think that, I do think that Wildfire is about to be banned.
Yeah.
It looks, so you take an already powerful deck, and you would be just fucking straight injecting it with 1980s Olympic Russian steroids. There's just no way, bro. It'd be too powerful.
Too powerful. Yeah. It looks really good, right? I think that is the kind of main piece about this. We're going to get into some Rosetta cards. We're going to get into Wizard. We're going to lead with Wizard once we get into the main topic because we've got Brendan, Patrick, we've got myself. You know, we're going to obviously talk Wizard. My mic keeps dropping. I don't know what's going on there. I'm having some trouble with my mic arm. If you're on video, you can probably see it just sliding away from my face. Just ever so slightly dropping.
It can smell your breath.
No, dude, I just brushed my teeth. What are you talking about? I'm ready for the day. I got up at 4:30 a.m. this morning. I went to the gym, made sure I could get there early so we could record. I got my meetings all day after this, so it's dedication, Bryn. It's dedication. And I made sure I brushed my teeth in between. So, all right. Anything else you want to kind of lead off with? Anything that's happening for you at the moment?
No, I mean, I've, fuck. I gotta move. I was supposed to go to Toronto for a Lacana thing, but honestly, in the context of this move, this new job, but then also we would have had to leave the dog somewhere, and one of my my 1-2-year-old dog is not neutered because he's a fucking tank, so it's just just leave him on. So when we do sort of we try to put him somewhere and we leave, we have to put him with the breeder, and it's just kind of expensive. So I actually decided to stay home. And I opted to not go. So, yeah, my card game participation just all around right now is at somewhat of a low because this influx of real life stuff, which is it's good and bad. I think that's definitely where I want the next chapter of my life to go, but it's a lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's life's life, right? Sometimes things happen. I'm starting a new job on Monday, which I'm pretty excited about. Same company, but new job. But
okay, I was like, what the fuck? I feel like you're a. I don't know if your company name is public on this podcast.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, you're that company name man through and through, in my opinion. I feel like that's
I've been there 8 years. Yeah, I'm about to.
Yeah, that's a long, bro. You're also 30. That's pretty atypical.
Yeah,
at least in the U.S.
I don't know, man. This company, when I go to the U.S., when I go to head office at our company, people are like, yeah, I've been here 20 years, 25 years, 35 years.
Yeah, those are the boomers, though, bro. How many 30-year-olds are there walking around being like, yeah, I've been here for 10 years? I feel like the normal thing to do in your 20s to 30s is basically get a new job every year.
Yeah, that is very common these days, I think. Or even, I think I saw a stat the other day, by the age of 35, the average person changes career twice these days.
Yeah,
so.
And honestly, through all my experience, I know it's worked out for you. I would recommend it because I had one of my partner was working a job here in Texas, and you get your 10% a year. You have to fucking beg for this small salary upgrade. They give you more responsibilities. I was like, fuck that. Switched jobs, instantly got more than double, fully remote, better benefits, just everything. And went from a good salary to a absolutely fucking ridiculous. And it was just like if she had stayed at that company, she would have been like, I don't know, she could have been. It could have been 10 years, 15 years later, and she would have been in a worse spot than if she had just switched. It's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems, and then also, like all these, the old school knowledge on it is like, oh, your company loyalty, you stay with someone. It's like, dude, nowadays these companies, bro, this at will employment, they don't give a fuck about you. Like, they'll dump you in a second.
It's a different world. It's a different world.
Yeah.
Brendan went full in there.
Yeah, Rosetta spoilers.
On the Fab side of it, I did play some Living Legend in the weekend. I only got to one event. I planned to get to 2 events, but I ended up having something on the Sunday, so just went along to a Living Legend on Saturday. And dude, Tarek Patel got to me. I ended up playing Bravo Star of the Show instead of my pre-planned chain. That I was planning to play chain. I've been spending a lot of time with this chain deck. I think at the point this pod goes up, the deck tick isn't up yet, but it'll go up in the next 24 hours or so, so look out for that on Living Legend chain. Spend a lot of time on this deck. The deck guy is up on Patreon as well, or will be up on Patreon, hopefully in time for the weekend. But yeah, Tarek Patel got to me. I played some Bravo Star of the Show, and actually, to be honest, I do agree with Tarek. I think it is pretty good in this format. I ended up going like 2-2, like dropping, whatever. Actually, no, it was 4 rounds, so I played the last round in the end.
Deck was sick. 0-2 drop.
No, like I think I was playing a bit poorly, to be honest. I didn't really understand the deck, so the age old saying, don't pick it up and run with it.
You weren't matching the colors of the rainbow correctly, were you?
Yeah, no. To be fair, I wasn't against my Zen opponent. That's true. I wasn't. What do people say? Laying down the crayons. Whatever they say. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have been enjoying this format.
Sutherland says, bro. Is he the one who said that to you? He said that, literally said that verbatim to me at Barcelona, I think.
Yeah, it's his favorite saying, I think. Let's head on to the news. I mean, obviously, yeah, Rosetta World Premiere is happening next weekend in Tampa Bay, Florida, America. I'm looking forward to the set, honestly. I think it's cool what they've done this time where we don't know a lot of the Majestics, so you can't kind of run wild with what the set might look like. And saying that, there's a lot of cards previewed already. We're going to talk about that in the pod, but a lot of Majestics, majority of Majestics, unknown at this point, and we're going to see a lot of those over the World Premiere weekend, and then heading into the pre-release the following weekend. And then I'll be at Calling Sydney, which is the weekend after that. That's only 3 weeks away at this point, so I'm looking forward to that. Rosetta sealed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but that should come as no surprise. It's a Wizard Runeblade set, so
that's true. I mean, it's looking
bound to be interesting at the very least. It's also one thing I'll say is that oftentimes, and it's not because of the Majestics, but oftentimes when looking at a set for the first time, it's like kind of confusing.
Yeah.
You're like, how does everything kind of relate? Like, with heavy hitters, it was all the fucking tokens. In Bright Lights, it was, oh my god, don't even get like everything. It's just like so hard to kind of piece it together before you have the context of playing with it. This set, for the first time that I can remember, I've been like, okay, this whole thing kind of makes sense. Like, it's just not that complicated. Obviously, we're dealing with Wizards and Runeblade, so the actual gameplay aspect is maybe a bit complicated, but like what the cards are trying to do and how they relate to each other, I just feel like it makes more sense to me than it usually does. Like, my first go over is I'm usually quite confused and I miss a lot.
That's because it's Wizard and Runeblade. It's 2 classes you've played a lot. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think you messaged me that and I was like, I didn't want to be like, I kind of disagree, but I was like, yeah, I agree on most of that. But I think a big part of it is because you've played a lot of Wizard and Runeblade. I think there's a lot of potentially unintuitive things in the set. Not in terms of, I think once you get into gameplay and you've played a little bit, I don't think it's going to be tough for necessarily newer players. I just think it's maybe not. I think there's a lot of under the surface things with the set, which looks quite interesting. A lot of very interesting interactions. I think heroes like Oscillo are quite, unique in the way that they operate. The weapons are quite unique in some ways, especially I think Wizard weapons in general tend to be quite unique. So, yeah.
Yeah, the Oscillo weapon is really the most that one is the most important one I think to keep in mind sometimes when trying to evaluate context on some of these Wizard cards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll talk about
that one's a bit funky. Yeah,
talk about it. I'm gonna switch screen and see if this works. Yeah, there we go. I had a preview card, Brendan. I don't know if you saw this. Exploding Ether. So I guess we can maybe start here a little bit anyway. This is a Wizard action. Amp 3 at red. Go again. Defense 2. Cost 2. I mean, it's basically Stir the Ether Winds 2.0, right? Like, it's Amp is the new keyword for pumping arcane effects, and obviously Stir and Forked was, something that they errated recently, and now you've got Amp, which applies to first effect on a card. So for instance, if you play the Fork Lightning, you get the pump only on the first damage of Fork Lightning, not on the second of the effect of Fork Lightning. But yeah, I think this is quite interesting to see another effective Stir effect, but a more modern Stir effect come into it. And Amp is obviously a big part of the set, if you haven't seen it already. Yeah, thanks for LSS for giving me this card. It's quite an interesting card. I think there's some. I think we're gonna see, like, this might be more of a limited card, honestly. But the fact this has Go again, it's not just a Kano card. Or if it is using Kano, you get to grab that cheeky action point.
Yeah. Do we have any idea? Sorry, I might have missed it in regards to how arcane damage is going to be potentially blocked in this set.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit. I mean, there's life gain, but there's also the arcane shelter. I need to find the. Sorry, I got so many screens open trying to bring up the card overlays as well. I think you're gonna have to find that.
Yeah.
I won't be able to.
I was looking through. I didn't see it on the cards that we had here.
Yeah, there's one from if you've got the Rosetta spoilers open. We talked about one last week. Ugh. I can't open it. I can't open it. I've got my screen is showing the overlay of the cards. Maybe I can try.
Yeah, but historically, Stir is quite a good card in Limited. To be honest, it's like in Arcane Rising, Kano, Stir was probably one of the more important cards you could have in your deck, as well as those multiplicative effects with like Aether Flare and things like that.
Yeah, I'm bringing up Sigil of Conductivity, which has Arcane Shelter, which is if you be dealt Arcane damage, destroy this to prevent one of that damage. So Arcane Shelter, but also life gain is what we've seen so far. So, yeah.
Very interesting.
All right, let's move on. We can go to Commander Cookout before we get into the main topic. And we've got a Commander Cookout from our Discord this week. If you want to get your Commander Cookout questions read out on the pod, you can either drop them in the YouTube comments below, let us know they are Command and Cookout question. You can, if you're a Patreon, like the Tekla Foundry is, you can leave them in our Arsenal Pass Discord channel. Or you can email us at arsenalpassfab@gmail.com. Whatever floats your boat, Brendan. Do you want to read the question this week?
Yep. Fun fact. Marco's fucking jacked, by the way. Marco actually got started. Marco's like probably one of the biggest success stories in the Fab Fitness Challenge, and he's like kept with it. And he posts updates in the Arsenal Pass Patreon Discord, and absolutely stacked now, which is crazy. So congrats on that. Anyway, they say on the topic of variance increasing, where does Fab being best of one factor in? Is it better or worse to win/lose due to high variance if there's still 2 more games in the round?
I think, hey, let's talk to the Lorcana man here who likes to play best of 2. I saw someone say the other day, I think people...
It's not best of 2, it's 2-game format.
Yeah, exactly. I think people were saying this well and saying that it's 8 rounds, you play 16 games. Like, that's how you should look at it, not it's 8 rounds, it's 16 games.
Yes. Yeah. So, quickly, I'll give some context on, like, the downsides of that. So the downside of that format is when you play against your opponent, it doesn't feel like you're... It really doesn't feel like you're playing against your opponent. You're not like trying to win. You're just trying to juice them for as many points as possible. And it's really unsatisfying, especially if you played previous TCGs to go win, then lose, and then it's like, oh, we don't get to like decide.
Yeah.
Also, in a 2,000 player tournament that has a top 64 cut on day 2, which is fucking ridiculous. They should fix that and change that. You cannot just go like 1-1. You have to consistently go 2-0. So you have people that are not effectively losing. They don't feel like they're losing in a traditional TCG sense, but in the tournament, they're big time losing. So it feels really, really bad. But the biggest problem, and this is just a quick tangent with Lorcana, is less that system. That system we could live with. I mean, okay, whatever. But cutting to 64 players on day 2 for a 2,000 player cap tournament, that's a 3% cut, is one of the most egregious, stupid things I've ever seen in my life, and I have no idea why they don't do day 2 Swiss. You also have a top 64 single elim bracket there on day 2. Everything about that is complete ass and is completely antithetical to people showing up to a tournament to actually play a game. And yeah, those are my thoughts on that. But yeah, in regards to variance, Lorcana actually instituted that theoretically because of variance, because the first player advantage was
because the game's broken.
I wouldn't say, dude, it's really not. I don't know. Like, there's
I think it
got
depends.
people who
Yeah,
hate-
it depends if you have a traditional TCG kind of look on it or not, or whether you just look at it as a game.
You got people that will hate on it, but the first player advantage has just been very big at certain points in the past with very specific cards. Like Lorcana's equivalent of Wheel of Fortune is a very, go first advantageous card. And while that card exists, it can make, if the meta is dominant around it, can make it a lot. But when it comes down to it, the numbers are probably more around like 55-45, which is a standard, like, it's a relatively okay and standard variance that you can have, and you need that level. Well, you don't need it, but it really helps the casual audience to give players that don't deserve to win a hope, because Lorcana is actually an extremely low variance game due to the mulligan and due to the resource system with the replacement level and all the cards, that the worst player pretty much loses every single time. Not as much as Flesh and Blood, but it still happens a lot. Mm-hmm. So if you have these additional variance levers where you can give people hope, because in Flesh and Blood, I feel like there's basically no fucking hope unless you pair into this egregiously good matchup, like, OG, like a Prism into like a Kano or something back in the day. Yeah, I mean, the worst player just always loses, and they lose over and over and over again. But we're seeing less of that, I guess, as speaking to Marco's question, as we get the increase in variance, we get the higher ceilings, the lower floors. I don't think there's a need for best of three. I don't think there's a need for best of one to factor in, but I don't know. This conversation happens a lot with Lorcana. I think the way that Flesh and Blood does it right now, it's very elegant, and pre-boarding allows the BO1 game to feel impactful, in my opinion. I played best of three in Flesh and Blood early days. Hayden's played it at a fucking calling.
Final, yeah.
And it was terrible.
Yeah, calling final was best of three. I don't know if many people know that's pretty funny, yeah. I actually don't think it's down to it has much to do with variance, to be honest, the conversation about best of one versus best of three, because I think it doesn't change the variance in the game. Like, it might change the feeling you have match to match, but it doesn't actually change the statistics on variance in any given game.
I think it does change the variance mathematically, right? So if you look at a player,
not over a large sample size, doesn't it?
No, but over a 3-game sample size. So if you took the first game, so if you have the worst player and say they have a 1/3 chance to win,
sure,
for them to win 2 games,
yeah, no, I understand.
Now you multiply it, so they actually become much less likely.
At a round standpoint, yes, but not at a game
yeah,
standpoint. And so, like,
not at a game, yeah.
And I guess that's kind of the thing that's important about Flesh and Blood. I think the biggest thing that it changes is that it changes the dynamic of pre-boarding and sideboarding. And having played best of 3 games of Flesh and Blood, it's actually pretty poor. Like, the game just isn't designed for that. In terms of, once you understand the 60 to 80 cards that in your opponent's deck, like, the game changes drastically and significantly, I think, favors the better player even more, because you now have a full understanding of what cards are in your opponent's deck and how you should play the matchup. The person who can adapt better, can react to what's happened in that first game, is going to be significantly advantaged, I think. And yes, there's some decrease in, and maybe so you could say, okay, that's going to decrease variance in 2 ways. Like you say, the player who maybe has to get a bit more lucky or needs the variance on their side to win 2 out of 3 games now has to do it twice rather than once. Then plus the more skilled player gets the advantage of just being the more skilled player, with knowing the deck, knowing the cards, knowing how to react to the game plan, whatever. But I think that's more of the advantage. Like, is what you gain from the first game, and I just don't think that's what Flesh and Blood should be, personally.
Well, I don't think you'd be able to finish a game in.
Well, that's also the structure has to be very different.
The whole game is not designed for it. Pre-boarding,
you can do it in Blitz though.
Things have to be reworked. What I'll say is that, agnostic of our opinion or even Marco's opinion, I would say that if you were to extrapolate the current design of newer Flesh and Blood sets, I would say that this is completely intentional. And like that, I think that variance that might feel bad in a best of one situation, like, they've deemed it to be a positive, right? Where I know that
they're leaning into it, right?
Yeah, they're leaning into it, but like, it's dude, trust me, it's really important. I know that when you're really good at Flesh and Blood, which I'm not anymore, it feels right for you to win against bad players. It feels correct. The universe feels aligned when they fucking lose, because they deserve it. Because you put in more thought and, like, the game better. And then you play a game like Magic, and you don't draw any lands, and you lose to some dude who showed up and pulled a bomb in a sealed pack, and is learning the game for the first time. And you're like, what am I doing with my time? I feel like a fraud. What is going on here? This feels terrible. Both ends are like a bit too extreme. I think Flesh and Bloods is like if you put yourself in the other player's seat, the bad player's seat, it is just so beyond hopeless that you will beat a player that is significantly better than you, unless you get some sort of meta variance, which is a matchup that is basically unwinnable due to some like weird kind of game design. But it's a really big downside of Flesh and Blood, which doesn't affect, I think, a lot of the people that listen to this podcast. But if you're new and you're casual, it's a big downside.
I think that's changed over the last 3 sets, particularly apart from this fail. Honestly, I think that's changed quite a lot. That's been my view, especially in limited. I think that's changed a decent amount. But
yeah, I mean the deck dammy and all that shit. Good luck.
Yeah, that's not a thing in the format anymore. I think, which is important. So yeah.
Like heavy hitters, limited. Good luck.
Wow, bright lights.
Significantly. Yeah.
Heavy hitters, I think, is a much better format for that consideration. Cool, great question. If you want to get your question, as we say, for the Commander Cookout, please do so. Let's move on. Let's talk about Rosetta preview. It's been a lot of cards dropped this week and over the last week. We've got to start with Wizard, I think, because Brendan Patrick has just been getting really excited about Wizard in general. We've got to start there. Right.
And to do that, we have 50 new zaps. A lot of zaps.
We do have a lot of zaps, but they're they're good.
They're
zaps.
cool. They're better than most of the zaps we have right now, which is crazy.
Let me bring up the card.
I feel like Wildfire has to be banned just because some of these zaps are like way better than the current edition of Zap.
Well, why don't we start there with maybe the best Zap ever printed, right? Overflow the Aether Well.
Yep.
Wizard action, blue, defense for 3 as well. Cost 0. Deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. Surge. If this deals more than 1 damage, gain 2 resources. I mean, this is the ultimate Wildfire blue flip, right? You effectively can do the combo with 1 less card, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, that would be disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about a Wildfire turn where, you don't have E-Pots down and you have the ability to not double pump, and now you've just increased your damage output with a double pump by, significantly by 10 damage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's ridiculous. Like two resources in a combo line is insane. It's absolutely ridiculous. And oftentimes, blue zap is your floor. But oftentimes you're like, yeah, I would love to hit that because I don't have enough resources. You're often constrained on resources, not really.
Yeah, don't hit the Scalding Rain at the zap.
Exactly,
sometimes,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you're talking about we're already hitting what is oftentimes best case scenario as the middle card in the Aether Wildfire combo. But now it's like, this is a whole different world. This slotting into the current Kano deck would be, yeah, right. No way. It's too good.
It seems pretty good, right? I mean, look, you do have to use the context. Like, it is an upgrade, but it is contextual. You have to either flip it off just blindly off Kano. But the thing it's going to do a lot of the time is just enable you to do. So if you blind Kano, right, and you hit this, it just gives you so many avenues in terms of like, okay, like I could Crucible this even on like a non-Wildfire turn. All of a sudden I could be finding like a lot more damage, or like actually there's just other combos that start to come out as well. You're like, oh, now I effectively get this 2 damage and net a resource kind of thing. Yeah, and if you can just play it on the combo turn if you also know you have a Blazing somewhere. There's also Kindle lines with that. Like there's so much.
Yeah, disgusting everywhere. This is like disgusting on like random flips on your opponent's turn for tempo. If you ever need to like poke some damage, if you're in a more controlling match, like it's just crazy. It's an absolute must answer. They have especially if like this is what you flip, and they have 1 card left in hand, and they would usually be okay taking 1 damage. Now this is like, oh fuck, now I gotta pitch my last card because there's no way I can give them 2 resources off this.
Yeah. To potentially net the
such a good like card for ripping cards out of hand on like one of those control like where you face against. I know they're easy to beat, but like the Oldhams and I guess less so the victors of the world. Like these kind of cards are so good.
Yeah. Also I think the fact this blocks 3. What about at red, where this is going to deal 3 damage?
How does the surge work at red?
3 damage. Surge is always the damage printed on the card. Yeah. Surge is always. Yeah.
I mean, it's not bad.
I think it's
Right?
alright. I think it's also of
Yeah, it's
interest,
alright.
which is yeah. Let's talk about what's next, Brendan.
Trailblazing Ether. 0 costs. Looking at the blue wizard action. Blocks for 3 says deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. Surge. If this deals more than 1 damage, it gets go again.
That's pretty good. Gain an action point off a blind flip on your turn, or off a set card to play a tome from hand or something.
Bruh. Yeah, ridiculous.
This card's also really good. These zaps are really strong.
This card's going to be good even if Wildfire is banned, I think.
Yeah.
So is the other one.
What if you were to say right now, chances Wildfire gets banned in Less Constructed?
It feels like the writing is on the wall.
Do you think it's
Yeah,
just been
I
a
mean-
case of it's restricted design space for so long? They're like, we're printing a wizard set. We're just gonna go
Yeah.
and we're gonna say Wildfire's gone. Just ignore it and
It
let's.
definitely restricts design space.
Yeah.
I would like a formal apology from Jason Chung when they do ban it, because they missed it. And they did. They definitely did not have the deck. That's fake news. But I remember I can never get the conversation out of my mind. I'm at San Jose World, and Brian asked me, he's like, okay, what, like, would you rather, like, Wildfire keep existing and something, or would you rather us be able to, explore new design space with Wizard and basically, print more Wizard cards? Because you couldn't really print more, like, Wizard cards that can go in the Kano deck with Wildfire, because you can't. It just makes the deck. It makes a good deck, a great deck, just so much better, especially when you're talking about like 0 costs like this.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a bit of an either or. And now seeing this as a Wizard set, I kind of feel like we're on the or.
You've got a friend there, Brendan. You've got a dog that's just
Yeah. This guy's a little carpet eating demon. He's been eating my carpet, and he comes in here and he steals water bottles. And what do you just, you thief?
Knew a guy like that actually. All right, let's move on. Next card. We've got Photon Splicing. 1 cost, blue, wizard action, defense 3. These are all cycles, these cards, because they're all common, by the way. This one says deal 2 arcane damage to any target, and it has instant discard this to amp 1 the next time you would deal arcane damage this turn. Instead, deal that much +1. I mean, this is just a straight upgrade on Scalding Rain or any of those type of effects, right? The 1 for 2 effects. Like, being able to discard this to amp 1 to be able to find certain things is huge.
Yeah, how does this work with instant? Does this work with Auxilio? So Auxilio's one for is discard an instant. Okay, so completely separate. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to harp on the whole Wildfire thing being banned. But I don't think you could just like low key upgrade all the vanilla cards that currently exist in that deck, and it would just be like, okay, it would be busted. But yeah, I think this card's great.
It's so hard not to take everything through the lens of playing Kano, because I played Kano for so long. The Wildfire just keeps coming to mind. But I think if we try and set that aside and we look at even some of the new wizards, I think these kind of instant speed effects that allow you to amp are quite strong, because there's also just other cards that have, you get...
With Auxilio, like, I think that Trailblazing Ether, the card we just talked about, is great.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be like a staple of a limited deck, because it doesn't seem like something that's going to play on the opponent's turn very often. You have to kind of get this, like, has been Wizard playstyle out of your mind.
Exactly.
And I think that being able to double spell on your own turn, effectively get go again on what is a non-attack action, will be very important.
Yeah, what about something like Verdance? Where do you think these wizard cards play in?
Yeah, Verdance is weird. So Verdance is like you have 4 more Earth cards. Whenever you gain life during your turn, you may deal 1 damage to the opposing target.
It feels
Like, I think
kind of
they're
the opposite, right? It doesn't feel like they're super synergistic with
It
what
does. So I think that these cards will be in your Verdance deck, but I don't know. I still feel like your shell is going to look like this.
Yeah, okay.
Or Verdance is like pure fucking Autumn's Touches, 3 for 7s, and then getting those Earth cards into your graveyard.
That's kind of what I
and
feel like.
basically-
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, we're talking about a limited deck, so especially if
No.
we're talking
I'm
about
talking
sealed, you're gonna have
I'm
some.
talking about constructed as well, though. Like,
Construct.
I'm talking about constructed. Like, I'm talking, both here, I guess, but particularly constructed. Like, does Verdance actually play these wizard cards? Because it's like, so your weapon if Verdance ends up playing Staff of Verdant Shoots, which is basically 3 resources, amp 1, go again, right? I don't know. It's so odd. Like, where does amp play? Obviously, your weapon tells you that you want to play damage dealing wizard cards, so it feels to me like Verdant wants to be this kind of hybrid attack action, non-attack action deck. But where do these blues fall in? I'm not sure. Like, non-earth blues to me might be... Yeah, I'm not sure they're the go.
I kind of feel like Verdance is more of a value deck,
Mm-hmm.
where you're playing 3 for 7s, and then you're playing instants that gain you life, and then trigger both, sometimes if there are 4 or more cards in your graveyard, instead gain this much, so you gain 5, but then you also deal 5 damage. Honestly, Verdance kind of reminds me a lot of Icelander, except instead of the, tax or resource, it's just getting value,
just extra value
on both. Yeah, it's just getting extra value because you're getting if we looked at Fertile Ground, you're getting a 2 for 10. If you that's crazy. If you've satisfied Verdance, or a 1 card, a 2 card 10 at instant speed. That's ridiculous. So I think that Verdance is just a value deck that will play likely. The way I would see it is it would play attack actions. It would like to fill up the graveyard very quickly with these Earth cards, and then just evaluate Fertile Ground off of the Verdance hero ability and the trigger, which is in your Earth cards in your banished zone. Oh shit! Why did I said graveyard?
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's
interesting. How do you?
So you've got to,
you have to also be banishing them. So I think you want to turn that shit on as fast as possible.
Yeah, you need to be decomposing, which is we'll
control.
We'll get some decompose cards, but decompose effectively banishes Earth cards from graveyard. So that's the thing. Yeah, Verdance needs to play I don't know if there's going to be space because you need to play these attack actions, these Earth cards. You do have some Earth cards that have decompose that are attack actions, like Summer's Fall that we'll get to, which is an Earth action attack that has decompose. So it says when this attacks, you may banish 2 Earth cards and an action card from your graveyard. And then you get an effect. There's a bunch of decompose stuff. But yeah, I feel like you have to play so many Earth cards. I just don't know how many cards like this and if they're the right kind of spells you want in your deck. Obviously, yeah. I mean, I also just wonder, is Verdance even going to want to play the Staff of Verdant Shoots? And if not, what's the other weapon? Do you think we see Majestic weapons? Or do you think we just see common weapons?
I don't know, actually.
We haven't seen them for a while.
I was also thinking that Verdance weapon does not look good for constructed. Listen, the way that I see Verdance is basically Icelander, but without taxing. It's just this value deck. Because if you look...
Well, read the second part of the second text on Staff of Verdant Shoots is good, right? Which is, when 1 or more Earth cards are pitched this way, the next time you deal arcane damage this turn, create an embodiment of Earth token.
Yeah, that is good. But if you play... So you get the embodiment of Earth, which gives you 1 value on your block.
Yeah, so you've got 2 value for 3 resources, effectively.
Yeah, but then if you're playing arcane damage, which is already inherently undervalued in terms of a damage, from a damage perspective, it's are you just kind of equalizing on that?
Yeah.
They kind of balance out, right?
Yeah, and you also need to find the way to deal the arcane damage. Could be from the hero ability, but you have to get to the 8 cards first, and then you also have to gain life. So it is, Verdance looks like the trickiest hero to me. Whereas something like Aurora, Florian, a lot more straightforward, and then the 2 wizards, particularly Verdance, seem quite in depth. And Oscillo, I think, is the one that looks to me like that's the arcane damage hero, right? That's the pure arcane damage hero. You've got this discard an instant to draw a card effect. I think that's a bit more straightforward.
Yeah, in the Verdance, you just amping 1. I don't know. I would say hold off a bit on the staff, because it's a little bit confusing. That is probably the hardest one to understand. What's not hard to understand is that something like Fertile Ground is a 2 card 10 at instant speed. It doesn't have a block value, but I feel like those are oftentimes the best things to do in Flesh and Blood. Is okay, it doesn't have this modality, but because it doesn't have the the modality, it's just its quantitative rate is way over value.
Yeah,
but the card is absolute fucking cheeks if you haven't triggered the second.
Do you want to read the card quickly so that everyone's on?
Yeah, Fertile Ground, 2 cost Earth instant. gain 2 life. If there are 4 more Earth cards in your banished zone, instead gain 5 life.
Yep. Yeah, card's pretty decent, right? I'll bring it up so people can see it. Yeah. Even like, do you think all copies of this are good, or do you think certain copies? It's a very strong limited card, I think.
I don't know. I feel like I usually don't want my. Oh wait, are we talking about limited or constructed?
Whatever you want. I'm talking.
I don't know. I feel like I don't usually want my blues to block for 0.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then why would you play yellow? The card would have to be broken for you to play yellow. So that's just how I evaluate everything. That's like the red yellow blue evaluation of Flesh and Blood is like red is okay. What's the value?
Yeah.
Yellow is the card OP enough for me to put a yellow in my deck, or is there some kind of deck building stip? And then blue is kind of you want the modality on a blue. You want to be able to block with it. You want to be able to attack with it relatively, without destroying your rate. Basically.
Shrill of the Skullform was always my favorite blue to kind of describe the perfect blue in Flesh and Blood, I think.
Yeah.
Should we talk Arcane Twinning? We'll just go through some of these other zap effects and some interesting art on these cards. It's quite funny. Arcane Twinning is another zap, so it's a 3-block blue, pitch 0, deal 1 arcane damage to any target, instant discard this to amp 1. I think that's pretty good, right? It's the same as the 1 for 2 Scalding Rain, but just at 0. The same as a Photon Splicing. And then what's next, Brennan?
Next is Chorus of the Amphitheater. Deal 2 damage. Wizard action. Blocks for 2. Cost 2. Deal 2 damage. Any target instant discard this if an action or instant card you control would deal arcane damage this turn. Instead, it deals that much +1.
Worth noting, this effect runs for the whole turn. It's pretty good.
That is worth noting.
Yeah. So I know we keep going back to Wildfire, but if you played this on a Wildfire turn, right, you're getting discarding this to get 1 on the first. Does this always discard actually? Yeah, you get this on the first, then you get the incremental damage. I mean, this card just seems good in any wizard, really, as long as you're playing multiple spells in a turn. So Oscilla, I'm guessing this card's gonna be good in. I like this at red as well for something like Oscilla. I guess 2 cost. 4 damage, but also has an instant effect that could be quite relevant as well. I think there's a reason this card defends for 2 and not for 3.
Yes, there always is. Yeah.
I think it's quite good.
And next up, we have the greatest limited card of all time.
Yeah, I want to talk about the 3 for 7s in the set. Obviously, we've spoken about Wizard. I think there's also there's a big lot of 3 for 7s in this format, which is interesting because if you look back at Heavy Hitters, that was quite a damage density format in terms of 3 for 7s and value orientation on cards to push damage and that was one of the first changes. We talked a lot about it during the Heavy Hitters season of LS moving from this kind of synergy based to an extent to a more of a hybrid between synergy and power to I guess power to weight ratio almost, right, in terms of the damage density in the deck to make sure that fatigue was much less relevant. And this format has quite a bit of that as well. It has a lot of 3 for 7s. So, I mean, the first up that we see is Findle's Fighting Spirit, a returning favorite. Another 3 for 7 there. I'm not going to read that card. Everyone knows what Findle's Fighting Spirit does. And if you're watching the video, you're going to see the picture anyway. But there's more, right? There's so many of them. I mean, there's Tongue Tied, which we'd already seen. This is a rare generic action. It blocks 2, costs 3, attacks for 7, says when this is a hero, turn a card in their arsenal face up, then banish an instant card from their arsenal. Very relevant in this format, I think. I think this is going to be a pack 1, pick 1.
Interesting. Yeah, just what interesting effect because you could play the instant. So
if you can pay for it,
exactly.
It just puts you into a lot of situations, I think, and there's so many instances that cost or you want to use on your turn to set up certain effects, right? Like there's the one that gives you your next attack plus 3, for instance. Like there's all these ones that you might want to use on your turn only. So comes at a bit of a cost.
Right. The more I look at the Earth cards, the more Verdance just seems like crazy. Like Fruits of the Forest, Earth, action, attack, 3 cost, 3 for 7, blocks for 2, but also has instant discard this, gain 2. Like if you satisfied your, I don't know how hard it's going to be to decompose 4 cards in limited, but considering constructed is 8, I mean,
pretty good turn 0 play though. Anyway, just
pretty good turn, but it's just crazy. It's like you always have that, like you can just kind of threaten, like this 4 swing on your opponent's turns. Not only can you gain the life, but just dome them for 2. Seems crazy and limited to me, but I could be off base.
Yeah, I think this card is going to be very highly sought after in limited. Also, because blue does the same thing. Obviously, blue blocks for 2, but is a 3 for 5 and also has the same effect. It's quite a nice blue.
It's effectively an instant speed 0 for 4 if you've satisfied the condition.
Yeah.
Like it's a 3 for 7 and a 0 for 4. What? That's busted.
Yeah, there's a lot of. So you were saying, the set seems so much more straightforward than other sets. I really.
It's super straightforward.
I think there's just so much happening though between, especially if you look at Earth, between decompose, between the banish clauses on effects, between going to graveyard and then just getting Earth cards in there. Plus that's before you even take into account things like sigils, etc. I don't know. There's a lot going on in this format.
I don't know. I feel like the first few times I read Bright Lights, I was like, what the fuck? It's like Evo upgrade, and like I don't know, crank, and I'm like, ugh.
That's just a lot of keywords, though. You know.
I know. It was.
I actually think this set is
like
kind of similar to Bright Lights in terms of complexity, but I mean I could be wrong. Like this is no heavy hitters. This is a lot more advanced than heavy hitters, I think.
Heavy hitters, the token thing was a little confusing at the beginning.
Was it?
You're like, fuck, what does that token do again?
Okay.
The first look, it was
Read
like,
it.
it was a bit annoying.
We've got another returning favorite, Autumn's Touch, Earth Attack Action. We're looking at the red card, cost 3, attacks for 7, defense 3. Seems pretty good in this format. A block 3,
Yep.
2 for 7, 3 for 7.
Pack one, pick one, baby.
Surely you're right. Surely you're right.
So funny, like coming. I've been playing a bit of Vintage Cube and Magic recently. It's just so funny, like coming back to Flesh Mode Limited, where it's just like the most just bland card is like, oh, that's a fucking windmill slam right there.
Modality, man. It's all about modality.
Yeah.
We've got a few more 3 for 7s, and we're kind of going to transition into Runeblade. We've got Splintering Deadwood. This is a rare attack action. We're looking at the red one here. It's attack for 7, defense for 3, cost 3. It says when this attacks or hits, you may destroy an aura you control if you do create a rune chant token. Obviously, the straight up implication in limited is around destroying your sigils and getting the effect. I mean, all the time you want to try and get those back to hand, but destroying those and getting effects, or destroying other aura tokens that you may have and getting rune chants.
Florian as well. If you satisfied the Earth Clause, says if you would create one or more aura tokens, and says create that many +1.
Yep.
For each of those tokens, so you're blowing up one to
get to.
Yeah, effectively.
Yeah, it's not non-token either. It's just aura you control, so you could destroy. If you somehow got a rune chant instant speed, I don't know if that's
destroy a rune chant, get 2 rune
possible. I think it's more going to be along the sigils and stuff like that and other auras. But yeah, Splintering Deadwood I think is a very good card. What's next on that 3 for 7 list? Are we
Vantage Point Runeblade attack action, attacks for 7, blocks for 3, cost 3. It says if you played or created an aura this turn, it gets overpower, and overpower is this can't be defended by more than one action card.
Seems like a pretty good win condition in limited.
Are we ever gonna see dominate again, or is it just
no? I think it's done. I think it's overpower. Yeah, I think so. This is a pretty good limited card.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't expect to see much constructed.
You don't need to take me to a fucking like a conference to sell me a 3 for 7. I'll buy a
one that's a win condition as well.
Yeah, any day of the week. Shady 3 for 7 salesman just opening up the trench coat. I'm buying it all.
What's next?
Next one is Earth Form.
Yeah, last 3 for 7, right?
Yeah, Earth attack action 3 for 7, blocks for 2. It says when this hits, create an embodiment of Earth.
Wounded
token. Bull? Wounded Bull. You think that Wounded Bull is like legit 3 for 8? I don't think this is quite that.
It's not. If you're on more life, it's not 3 for 8.
I know, but it's easier to manipulate than like, oh, I need to commit another card on my opponent's turn to block.
Yeah, maybe. I just think this card is very good.
Would rather play Fyendal's Fighting Spirit, but then again, this is Earth, and both Florian and Verdance want to get those Earth cards.
I think these... My view is these are probably going to be just very, very high pixel, these 2 cards, 7 Earth cards.
There's a concerning amount of 3 for 7s,
right?
by the way.
It's interesting, right?
They've learned, so they've learned.
Yeah, I think they're there for a reason, right? I think this format is going to be very... I think there's a bit of this limited format looks like a bit of a divide. It looks like you're going to have some decks that are, like you say, a bit more value-based, trying to get to game states of setups of game states. So you talked about Florian and Verdance. And then you've got other decks that are trying to, I guess, get to that point and have their opponent be on pretty low life. So, Aurora, Asilo, for instance.
Well, if you're also just trying to play value, and you don't have something as efficient as like, multiple instances of Arcane Barrier, if the best thing you can do with your action point and 4 cards in hand is go 3 for 7, keep 2 cards in hand, or like we can't and you not able to be blocking blocking arcane damage, and you can't utilize a 4 card hand, your 3 for 7 deck is gonna look
pretty bad, right?
Potentially kind of shit.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's obviously going to be very balanced. It's quite an interesting dynamic. Yeah.
I believe that is the balance axis here.
Yeah.
Where the grindy decks could just, can't really grind against uninteractable damage.
Nope, you certainly cannot. I think it's quite interesting. Let's talk Runeblade though, because I think it's quite interesting. Is Viserai on the table? Like, yes, there's Florian, and we can talk about Florian. I think it's a little bit hard to maybe dive in without seeing some of the logistics on the constructed standpoint of what these might look like, and legendaries. But I think if I'm just looking at some of these cards, people are like, these cards are so unexciting. I mean, these are commons and rares, guys, but there's a couple of cards that I think are potentially quite interesting. The first one is Malefic Incantation. It's a Runeblade action aura at rare. It's a cycle. We're looking at the red one. Cost 0, defense for 2. Says go again. This enters the arena with 3 verse counters on it. When it has none, destroy it. Once per turn, when you play an attack action card, remove a verse counter from this. If you do, create a rune chant token. Obviously, if you're thinking Florian and you're on board, you're going to get 2 from this each time, right? Which is pretty powerful. Yeah? That's how that works, Brendan?
Is that how that works?
What does Florian say? Doesn't Florian say you get an extra copy of the aura?
If you would create 1 or more aura tokens, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. So this is potentially a 1-card 6, Brendan. Right? Right?
1 card 6, but yeah. I mean, possibly. Possibly.
But I also just think for Viserai, this is quite an interesting card. It's kind of like read the runes, except you can use it over turns to help you with, your hero. What's the? Oh my goodness, I'm struggling today with reducing your cost of cards thanks to rune chants, and also if you're Vincent, I guess, although I'm not particularly interested in Vincent, with Runegate.
Read the Runes also does not have go again.
It does not. It does not. Obviously, this puts it over turns, but I think that's actually not a disadvantage. I think that's potentially an advantage.
It sounds better in a non-Scalata world, to be honest.
I think so too. You get to use it to reduce the cost of your cards, which is pretty good. Why am I blanking on what's the effect that reduces the cost of cards with rune chants you control? Not Runegate.
There's a keyword for it.
Yeah. Is there not? Or am I just making up there's a keyword?
No. I think it's just text.
Okay. Not like Runegate.
And stuff.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's a keyword.
Okay. For some reason, I was like, in my head, I was like, there's definitely a keyword for this. I'm thinking about Runegate for Vincent.
Wait, who is that?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Runegate effects are pretty good in Shane, to be honest. Sigil of the Arknight. Runeblade action aura. A lot of these sigils right in this format. They're a big part of this format from both a limited standpoint, but also potentially from a constructed standpoint. This is they're all blue we've seen so far. This is a rare, defense for 2. It's a Runeblade action aura. Go again at the beginning of your action phase. Destroy this. When this leaves the arena, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an attack action card, put it into your hand. This card's quite interesting because it's a go again non-attack action, which you're always looking for. It costs 0, unlike Tome of the Arknight, which has a similar effect to this. And also sets you up for the next turn as opposed to the current turn, like Tome of the Arknight. I think this card is quite interesting in Runeblade.
Yeah.
I'm talking constructed here as well.
I know. Because I find myself not often wanting to. I don't know. I guess I just haven't played a deck like that in a long time that would want to sacrifice an entire card to just like cantrip on the next turn.
Well, gets you
conditionally cantrip.
It enables your non-attack action aspect and also creates a rune chant token if you're Viserai, right?
Yeah. But how good? What's your go-to weapon nowadays in class constructed?
I don't know. Nebula Blade.
Yeah, which makes it a little bit more ass, like Rosetta Thorn.
Well, obviously Rosetta Thorn. Yeah, that's always the context. So we're not getting Rosetta Thorn, but
yeah, too bad. But So the problem is with let's say Viserai, you usually would want some sort of mathematical split on non-attack actions and attack actions, and this. Even though it satisfies your non-attack action for the turn, it like conditionally cantripping just seems like it's maybe not great for me.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if this didn't cantrip, like
it doesn't
the
hit,
disaster.
it's so bad. Yeah. Yes, I agree. I agree with that. Okay.
Yeah, I think this one. You know what? I'll go out. I'll say this one's cheeks.
Limited
I think
card?
it might be
Limited
cheeks.
card only? Okay. What about this one, though? Hit the high notes. Runeblade action attack, defensive 3, attacks of 4, red, cost 1. Says if you've played or created an aura this turn, this gets +2. Oh, a 1 resource, 6 power card. Is that more your
I've
vibe?
seen cards like that before.
Yeah, but usually they block
Sorry.
2 in a generic and are harder to trigger. Push the point.
It's no. Which one am I thinking about? Mauve, Skies, and then you play the 2 cost.
Shrill the Skull form.
You play Shrill the Skull form.
Yeah. This is a 1 less power Shrill the Skull form for
Works-
this resource. I think it's better with the 2
Works
cost weapons.
better with Nebula Blade though.
Yeah, better with the
right?
2
If
cost
you're a
weapons. And
if you're a
Rotwood
Nebula Blader.
and with Florian's weapon as well.
I think this card owns.
This card's pretty
But
good, right?
Shrill, does Shrill have a? No, it doesn't. No, it's just it's literally just Shrill, 1 cost Shrill, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's just 1 cost Shrill. It's pretty good, right?
I think good. Yeah, I mean, especially if we're in a Nebula Blade world, for sure.
Big fan of this
Okay.
one. Where to next?
Rune Rager Swarm. Runeblade attack action, attacks for 3, blocks for 3, costs 0. And says if you played or created an aura this turn, this gets go again.
I like this card. This is interesting. I think it's gonna be a limited staple for depending on archetype, but I think also in constructed this is gonna see play as well.
Yeah,
I think so.
maybe. Yeah.
I think so. 0 for 3 that blocks 3. I mean, if you look at this from a Viscerai standpoint, it's basically a 0 for 4 with go again. Yeah.
Could be. Yeah, could be. Triggering that Rune Chain creation.
You can find the Viscerai fan over here. That's for sure. I like this card. I think it's strong.
Yeah, yeah.
Next up, let's talk about Lightning. We've talked about Runeblade. I think Runeblade is interesting. I think there's potential for some Viscerai implications, which is cool. I'm always down for that. I think there's clearly going to be some of these cards going to be played in Florian. Aurora as well, but also I'm really interested to see what Aurora looks like. I think we're about to talk about the cards that are going to impact Aurora specifically as well, and then also just from a limited standpoint, some of these Runeblade cards are quite good. There's a lot of obviously there's a lot of instants in this format, but there's also a lot of block 3s that seem like decent cards that you want to have in your deck. So the defense value seems like it's on, like there's not a lot of just kind of trash 3 blocks in this format. A lot of the cards just seem really playable. I think that's been one of the biggest upgrades since Heavy Hitters is just cards are playable, which is a good place to be.
Yep. Unless they're bananas.
I mean,
block
even
3,
in
okay.
Heavy Hitters and Part of the Misfell, like those cards have had a lot more impact on the format than previous.
Yeah, I think defense value is less dangerous in a set that has arcane damage. From
I
a
agree.
design standpoint.
Except for the decks that don't deal arcane damage. Well,
yeah.
you deal as much, right? Deal as much direct arcane damage. So the Runeblades effectively.
Effectively.
The matchups are going to look quite different, I think, in Limited. Wizard versus Wizard versus Runeblade, or Runeblade versus Wizard. Those 3 kind of triangles are going to look quite different, I think. Sideboard cards will be interesting, though. Which I think, again, you got the card limit, so sideboard is relevant. Let's talk about Electrostatic Discharge. This is a lightning instant, cost 0. The next action, we're looking at the red one. The next action card you play this turn with cost 1 or less gets +3. So this is one of the ones you wouldn't want to play on your opponent's turn, right? Just going back to our earlier discussion.
Yeah, so why would you want to play this? Well, is Aurora. Once per turn instant, two resources, create an embodiment of lightning token. Activate this only if you played a lightning card this turn.
Yep.
Great with this.
Yeah, I agree. Also, Oscilla can obviously play this with attack actions, but discard this to draw a card if you don't have, attack action. So Oscilla, if you're playing like, maybe I'm on the arcane / attack action hybrid, and I draw this in a hand with no attack actions, well, at least you can cycle it, right?
I think you're 100% correct that that's like exactly how it will play, by the way.
Yeah. I think that's
Like, I
what
think
Oscilla
it'd be
is.
mostly like it'd be quite an attack action deck, and then you just like cantrip these things whenever you need to.
Agree.
Seems
Especially
sick.
in Limited, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, construct it like fuck. Who knows?
Well, yeah, I mean, Volzar is such an interesting weapon, right? If you haven't seen Volzar, it's if you control an aura permanent with Sigil in its name, this costs 1 less to activate. It's a once per turn instant, 1 resource, amp X, where X is the number of lightning cards you played this turn. So I think Oscilla has some of the most complicated kind of turn structures potentially, especially with this idea that you can discard cards and then get a new card. The unknown and the lines of play branch a lot more than some of these other heroes, I think, between the hero ability and Volzar.
I didn't know that you you actually won the Queenstown Invitational because look, we have a card in your likeness here. Trip the Light, fantastic. It's a lightning attack action. Attacks for 5, blocks for 2, costs 1. It says instant discard this, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to you this turn.
It's kind of a nice thing to say. I was like expecting this to be like a horrible disconfigured monster on the art, but it is not that. So I'll take that. Thank you.
He's expecting like art from like Convulsions from the Bellows of Hell.
This card's good. I love these. I love just the design. Sorry, of these instant discard to prevent 2 damage. Obviously, in the context of an arcane set, but also just the fact that they're on cards that I think are just staple attacks. You know, like I think as a red attack, this is just a good card. It's a 1 for 5.
Yeah, 0 for 2 on the instant.
Mm-hmm.
Not great, but that's going to be the rate you're going to get against Arcane, I guess, most of the time. But Arcane
It's the same as its block value, though, right? That's the thing. It's the same as its defensive value. So if you had this at blue and had to block with it, it's the same value, but it's more versatile.
I didn't equate it like that. It makes a lot more sense when you do that.
The value I think is quite interesting. I think it just makes, for instance, it makes the yellows of these playable, which I think, to your point before about bananas and do you want to play those? I think, the yellows of these effects become quite relevant in this format, I think, honestly. Your trade-off of like, you're into mid-pack of your draft and you're like, okay, well, here's a card that's going to help me deal with, potentially the wizards that might be tough to deal with, especially something like a Silo, which might just pump me for damage depending on the archetype they drafted. And here's an attack that, it's a 1 for 4. It's a little bit awkward, but it does something in my deck, and also it has this damage prevention or this blocking interaction that I might need.
Yeah.
I honestly think some of these yellows in the set look significant. Like I think with design philosophy like this, LSS are finding ways to make the yellow stripe card a lot more relevant in Flesh and Blood, which is cool.
Well, next up we have a limited All-Star. Lightning Surge, attack action, attacks for 4, blocks for 2, cost 0. It says, if this was played from Arsenal, it gets go again. It's a good card. Although this was a particularly good card in Tales of Aria because it was a great fuse target.
Yeah.
Because you would fuse,
and
then this would be your last card left in hand. You would arsenal it. So maybe it's not as.
I don't think it's gonna be as good.
Rosetta.
Yeah. It was a rare in Tales.
If it was, that's a big tell.
No, maybe it was a common. Maybe it's a common. I'm not gonna look that one up, but yeah.
Speaking of fuse cards, next one is Heaven's Claws. Attacks for 5, attack action, lightning card, of course. Blocks for 3, costs 1. It's a vanilla, 1 for 5. Also was like serviceable fuse card, especially a red. Getting your 1 for 5 as your fuse card. So I think in this set it doesn't seem as powerful, but it's actually, it's probably okay in Aurora.
Yeah, I think this is an Aurora card. Yeah, you nailed it. I think it's an Aurora card.
Yeah, probably decent in Aurora. Aurora is able to kind of, manipulate the go again, so I think a card like this would be quite good value.
Yep. Whereas on the other hand, I think Fry is actually more of an Asilo card, I think, because you want to be able to use your hand in the context of it. So this is a lightning action attack, attacks for 3, defends for 0, not 0 defensive value. It has a defensive value, it's just 0, costs 0, and just says go again. I mean, I want to be putting this in my Living Legend Briar deck, I'll tell you what, but yeah, this card's cool.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
This card's cool.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, next one is Lightning Form. This is a lightning attack action. Attacks for 5, blocks for 2, costs 1. Says when this hits, create an embodiment of lightning token.
This card's good, right?
What would you value? Yeah, I mean, it's good. What value would you put on a lightning token? It's go again. What value would you usually assign to go again?
So hard to know. It's so contextual on actually
Tarek had
the
like
format.
Some crazy value on agility tokens and heavy hitters. I think he had them closer to 3.
Yeah, I think that's insane. I think it's dependent on the rest of the context of your deck, and honestly, a lot of the time, probably mostly the context of your deck, but also the format, and then sometimes it's going to be relevant the context of the matchup. Because of the opportunity cost of the card itself. But I mean, it's a 1 for 5. That's really good. And then creating an embodiment token, like you can utilize this. I think a lot of the time you can make this have value of. So the interesting thing about something like other sets where it's like, okay, you get to attack with your weapon afterwards, right? Because of the go again. In this set, like your weapon for Aurora potentially has go again anyway. A Silo obviously isn't an attacking weapon, so it's maybe a little bit different. But I think it's probably somewhere between the value of 1.5 and 2.5 a lot of the time.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, that would turn this card into a 1 cost 7 attack. But I think a lot of the time sometimes it's gonna be with 0. It's worth pointing out, I think.
Well, the whole idea of the value is like when you talk about the value of a token like that is that it's like the net value. You should be also calculating for the floor there too.
Mm-hmm.
Flittering charge, lightning attack action. Attacks for 4, blocks for 2, cost 0. It says if you play an instant card this chain link, this gets Gogan.
This is cool. I like that you can play your instance and give this Gogan.
Oh, you think this is a Silo or Aurora card?
I think this is more an Silo card probably at this point from what we've seen.
I was actually thinking Aurora.
I think it's probably both, honestly.
Yeah.
Because what's Aurora's? And this card is Starfall.
I think Aurora's playing those instants.
I think so too. I just have a feeling. I feel everything this is gonna be both. It's gonna be context dependent on the archetype you draft into. I think this might be more impactful all the time in a solo though. That's just kind of my view. But yeah, let's go to. I want to talk about next just some of the Earth pieces and some of the changing variable value in the set, which I think is quite interesting. And obviously that's a big part of the Verdance, or the Earth heroes anyway, with having a certain amount of cards in Banish. Helm of Lignum Vitae. Is that how you say that?
Just reminds me of like someone trying to get you with a ligma.
If there are 4, it's a Earth equipment head. Defense for 1 has Blade Break. It's Coleman says if there are 4 or more Earth cards in your Banish zone, this gets +1. So if you've got 4 late game, this is a Blade Break 2. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Very strong and limited.
But what's great though is that the floor not bad.
Yeah, Blade Break 1.
Ceiling busted.
I don't know about busted. Pretty good though.
Bro, you can't just like have Blade Break 2 on your head on your common equipment. That's crazy.
Summer's Fall. Let's talk about some of these variable values with Decompose. Decompose says when this attacks... Summer's Fall is a 2-cost Earth action attack at rare. Attacks for 6, defends 2. This is the red one. It says Decompose. When this attacks, you may banish 2 Earth cards and an action card from your graveyard. If you do, put up to 1 target Aura on the bottom of its owner's deck. If it's an Aura token, it ceases to exist. I mean, it's pretty good. This can destroy, even if it's destroyed Rune Chant, then it's a 2 for 7, a 2-cost attack for 7 value, right? If you're breaking a Rune Chant. If you're getting an embodiment of Earth, same sort of value. If you're getting an embodiment of Lightning, maybe potentially even more value. So Summer's Fall seems like a pretty good card in a very Aura-heavy set. And also...
This card is potentially putting 3 Earth cards into your bench zone, yeah?
Yes. This card is maybe like the best pick one, especially in Earth.
Yeah, in Verdance, this is just crazy, right?
Yeah.
And
it's good in Florian too.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
like, what?
Maybe the best
I thought
Earth
it was
card
going to be
limited.
hard to do this shit. I guess you can't draw it like turn 1, but that's all. I thought it was going to be like, oh, you got to play all these shit cards that one by one put things into the banish zone. Like this is three of them.
You have to get them in the graveyard first, right? There's a bit of a a trail,
sure.
right? Get them in the graveyard, get them in the banish. But this is the kind of card you want in your deck. I think this is like if we're not the limited set review, but I'd be very surprised if I'm not once we get to the limited set review, if I'm not giving this an A. I'd be very surprised. And I just wonder what the context of Constructed is. Like you talking about Verdance potentially being a value deck in Constructed, is this the kind of card that's going to be really important to it? That would be my guess if your prediction is correct. Speaking of value.
Yeah. You think Verdance is going to be balanced? And do you think it's going to be busted and Constructed?
No, I don't think it will be.
Fuck. I don't know.
I know Nick Butcher wants it to be, just like you do. Let's talk about Nick.
Yeah, because he's the ointment gamer.
That's true.
Of course he does. It's like, I can turtle and heal myself and do damage.
Do you want to read us the next?
Rootbound Carapace, Earth Defense Reaction. Blocks for 3, costs 0. It says Decompose. You may banish 2 Earth cards and an action card from your graveyard. If you do this, gets +1. Okay, so I think in Limited, it's going to be super easy to hit the 4.
Yeah.
8's a different story because you're using the same cards. Obviously, more life, longer game, but the rate is the same. And the criteria you need to hit is half. So I think it's going to be easy to be at the 4 in the bench zone in Limited.
Very potentially. This card's pretty good, though.
Yeah, this card is good.
0 for 4 potential with upside of getting cards. The thing is, though, is like at some points in the game, this is not going to be like you got to remember, like, yes, the ceiling on these cards are really high, but you got to think about the floor as well. At some points, this is just going to be a 0 for 3 defense reaction because you can't fulfill the decompose.
Yeah, but this card has two crazy functions: 0 for 4 ceiling, nuts.
Yeah.
But then it also functions as the synergistic card you need to turn on your hero.
Yes.
And satisfies 75% of the, maybe if you have it in my graveyard, of the condition. Like, that's just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It does. I think you just got to remember as well, you have to fulfill all of this. You have to do 2 Earth cards and an action card. You can't just do 2 Earth cards, no action card. And an action card as well. So you do have to banish 3 cards for decompose. Right? You may banish 2 Earth cards and an action card. Yeah. All right. We've got a few more cards to quickly cover before we wrap up. Fertile Ground. This is Earth Instant. Brendan already talked about this card. At red, says gain 2 life. If there are 4 more Earth cards in your banish zone, instead gain 5 life. Obviously, this card seems pretty good with Verdance. It's a Verdance card, right? But it's also about, if you draw this too early, this card is pretty bad in red. Like, if you're having to use this to fill your graveyard as opposed to getting the extra 5 life, this card is pretty terrible. So I think this card is a bit of a balance. Honestly, I think this card is kind of better, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting. The floor is really bad.
Yeah.
But if you can, I don't know, if there was like ways, like if you could like, I don't know. You had things that like required you to discard or like there was, like sink below effects. Like
it's just not really clear that's what this format is, right? And maybe in constructed, I think it's more of a constructed card than a limited card, honestly. Because I think in limited
seems nuts.
It's kind of, I don't know. Let's talk about which hero you most. I mean, it sounds like you're most excited by Verdance, but let's just quickly wrap up on the heroes and their weapons.
By all of them that are not Runeblades, to be fair.
Ugh, you're so lame.
AKA wizards.
What do you think of Florian?
Florian's dope. Actually, way cooler in my opinion than Aurora, but
yeah, me too.
Yeah, Aurora is the most vanilla.
It's the more straightforward. It's the ninja of the set, right?
Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Max. Just like making, I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that.
Your combat chains are going correctly. You're getting set up for the next turn. You got your correct amount of go-agains for your fucking 4-card hand you're going to draw. Did we talk about Rotwood Reaper?
Yeah, we did. I read it before. I think that is quite an interesting weapon. The once per turn action attack, 2 resources, attacks for 2, and if you've played it or created an aura this turn, it gets +2. I mean, I think obviously very important and limited. I don't know about constructed. Is there better weapon options? Maybe not. But yeah, that's pretty good. What do you think of? I mean, we've already talked about Verdance. You're pretty high on Verdance. What do you? And we've talked about Verdance's weapon. Let's move on. What do you think about Ocello as a hero?
Oh yeah, looks great. Love it. Love.
What do you think about the lore of Ocello not being able to wear boots? Won't have a leg slot. It would say it on the card, right? It would have to say it on the hero.
Nah, yeah. I think Ocello is sick, and I think what you described with like those pump effects and then being able to cantrip them, is really cool.
Yeah, I see.
Also, like, I think once per turn, like you can like just cantrip a lot, and it's kind of cool.
I think Ocello is really clear and limited. I think constructed is going to be the harder one to work out for Ocello, whereas I think it's maybe the other way around for something like Aurora, for instance. It feels like it's pretty straightforward and constructed. Maybe limited might be a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I feel. Yeah, I like Aurora's weapon, just while we're on that. Starfall, Lightning Runeblade weapon, sword, 2-hander, attacks for 1. Once per turn action is 1 resource to attack, and says if you've played a lightning card this turn, this gets +1 and go again. And 1 for 2 go again is a pretty good weapon, I think. I think the weapon's pretty powerful.
Why would you want the go again, like, on your weapon in particular?
Because you're going to play...
Like, because you've already played the lightning card, so you play, like, a action pump card. Then you play your weapon, and then you play the attack action? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like, let's say you play... I mean, there's obviously a lot of, like, 1-cost ones, but let's say you want to use the hero ability, you play your 0-cost pump, you make your embodiment token, you attack with the Starfall, then you attack with your 1-cost, your Heaven's Claw or whatever.
The weapon is just, like, the weapon's just in the middle. Got it.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. All right, I think it's going to do it. The set's looking pretty interesting, Brendan. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on this from a limited perspective, and then I also think, I mean, we didn't touch on the whole Zen conversation, and Brian Gottlieb tweeted out about, understanding the power of Zen. It sounds like something's going to happen in the Zen world, whether that be bannings, restrictions, etc. I think let's leave that for next week, because I think something might happen in the next week or so.
Yeah, I just want to further highlight, Michael Yasker doubting the power of Zen, and it's just like the most broken hero ever created. So,
dude, you're gonna make him
shout
so
out to
upset.
that guy.
We love Mike. All right, take us out.
All right. Well, if you enjoy this podcast, then one thing you do is leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify's video version on YouTube at youtube.com/ArsenalPass. Deck techs going up on Patreon, so take a look or keep an eye out for those. And Twitter's Brendan APG, Finn _Dale. Thank y'all so much. We will see you next week.
See ya.